1. As a child, I had many missing time experiences. Often in the middle of the night, I'd find myself in the basement and very scared. Nearly always, this was accompanied by images/feelings of Armageddon or something like it. I used to write it off as a combination of bad dreams and sleepwalking. Except that it happened twice in broad daylight when I was wide awake. The worst was on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Several of us were melting dry ice in a puddle at our court entrance. Suddenly we were overwhelmed with the urge to run across the street and into the woods. I don't remember if someone suggested it or if we all thought of it at the same time. Whatever the case, it felt like the best idea I'd ever heard. We began to run across the street, and that's the last thing I remember. The next thing I knew, I was at home about an hour later crying and very scared. To this day, I have no idea what happened in that missing hour. It remains a haunting mystery for me. 2. My husband and I were on our way back from Japan and about to catch our connecting flight from LA to Florida. We were seated on the plane when the pilot announced that we were delayed because there's a problem with the plane that needs to be fixed. We sat there for close to 2 hours before we were all told that the flight couldn't happen. We got off the plane and, through the shittiest experience imaginable, made it to a hotel. Fast forward to finally catching a flight the next day, finding our luggage, and getting home. Neither of us really remembered the details super clearly. I assume exhaustion and jet lag played a part, but the whole week after we were home, we both felt super out of it and spacey. I kept having dreams about the plane crashing and the pilot not having found the problem with the plane. Then a few days later, my husband and I were talking and I told him that I keep having this dream that the plane crashed and we died and this is the afterlife or something. He said he was having similar dreams, and that made it even weirder, like our reality splintered into a different timeline. 3. This happened about 10 years ago. I was out running errands and remember seeing this black pickup that had "Death from Above" printed on the top of the windshield. About an hour later, and 15 miles away from where I first saw it, I passed by the very same truck. I then drove 40 minutes to the other side of town to pick something up and, you guessed it, saw the same truck. It really freaked me out running into death from above 3 times, in a city with about 2 million people. A friend called about that time and asked if I wanted to grab lunch. I needed to get home, but still feeling creeped out, I decided I needed some company. When I got home, I saw that a very large tree in my front yard had fallen over the driveway. My neighbor said it happened about an hour and a half earlier. If I hadn't been creeped out by the pickup truck encounters and gone to lunch, that would have been when I returned home. Death from above? 4. I had a weird friend in high school who was into fortune-telling, telepathy, etc. One day we were talking on the phone, and she told me to stare at something in my room and think about it over and over again. And she would be able to tell me what I was looking at. She'd never been in my room. I was looking at a cut-up pic from a magazine, a pretty painting, with lots of different colors, and focused in on 3 colors, orange, seafoam green, and magenta. She listed orange, a light green, and a purple, no pinkish purple. Yeah, I was creeped out. 5. When I was young, my dad, my sister, and I often used to cycle to a local park. One time when we were there, my sister and I were cycling around the car park of a building within the park, while my dad was still farther up at a play area that had swings and a seesaw. As my sister and I were coming out of the car park to go back to where my dad was, I heard him shout, "Watch out, there's a car." We cycled off the road and onto a verge, and seconds later, a car driven by some knob came herring round the corner and narrowly avoided hitting us. A bit shaken, we cycled back to my dad. When we got there, I thanked him for yelling a warning so we could get out of the way. He looked a bit bemused and said he hadn't shouted because we were so far away, but he thought it. It was only then that I realized we'd been way too far away to have heard him even if he had yelled. It was so odd that I heard him shout when he hadn't, and that it essentially saved us from being run over. I still can't explain it to this day. My dad passed last year, and I miss him every single day. I love you, Dad. 6. My first week of high school, I walked by some guys in the junior lockers hallway, and as I looked over at them and spotted one in particular, the exact thought of I'm going to marry him went through my mind. He had on a football jersey, so I made note of the number. A week later, that boy transferred into my English class, wearing his football jersey. A few months later, he was talking in class too much when the teacher told him to go sit next to, and despite there being a few open seats, I just knew she was going to put him next to me. Yup, she did. We began talking, finally became a couple in our sophomore year, broke up, and I even moved 1,900 miles away. I still knew we would get married. My family ended up moving back, but I went to a different high school then. Despite living in a town of 500,000 people or so, we'd still run into each other. We got married at 19 and are still together. 7. I used to walk up to this little woodland area with my cats in the evening. People called me that girl who walks her cats. Once, I stood there and looked at one of them, right in front of him, and suddenly he was just gone. We were in a clearing with short grass, and he's a big, white long-haired cat. I felt so weirded out, he literally just vanished before my eyes. A few seconds later he was behind me, 20 meters back, acting oddly excited as he trotted up to me. 8. When I was 8 or 9, my mom, sister, cousin, and I were driving from Tucson, Arizona, to Salt Lake City and lost about 6 hours of the drive. It was early afternoon and suddenly the sun was setting, and the tape, it was the late 80s, early 90s, was on the other side as if it had been looping for hours. We were all singing one song at the tops of our lungs, and then it felt as if we'd come out of a haze and the song was different and no one was singing, and we were definitely hours down the road from where we had started singing. No one was saying anything, till my cousin suddenly said, "Did I fall asleep or did time go wonky?" To this day, the remaining 3 of us have no idea what happened, and I think about it from time to time. 9. I moved to this apartment 2 months ago, and there is a weird thing with this place that is driving me nuts. When I stand still anywhere for a few minutes, usually to read whatever on my phone, there's a sensation of the floor directly under my feet rising. As if there's someone beneath who is pushing the floor up, creating a dome-like sensation under my feet. I had friends standing still to see if they'd feel it as well. 4 felt it and 2 didn't. Almost all of the floors, hallway, living room, 2 bedrooms, and a kitchen, are in wood planks. The bathroom has a lino floor. There's no cellar. I live in a quiet area, so no heavy traffic nearby. The train station is a 15-minute walk away. There's actually nothing that can explain the sensation. I get it if it only happens in one room, as the sensation could be due to the wood planks not fitted well, but all rooms, including the bathroom lino floor. It doesn't unnerve me that much anymore, but I want an explanation. 10. My grandfather's dementia got really bad before he passed, and for almost a year, he kept talking about this white house across the street. There was no house, just a cow field. The day of his funeral, my mom and I were in my grandparents' house, and we both saw a white house behind this field that wasn't there before.